Let's talk about how you became a very famous soprano, perhaps the most famous in the world.
Just keep saying that. Thank you.
You are performing in Carousel, which is not an opera, it's a Broadway play.
I just thought, wow, it would be really exciting to do something new.
Famous sopranos are sometimes labeled as divas or prima donnas.
I just couldn't do it. I've never been good at it.
You'll never know just how much I miss you.
You've done Broadway, done opera. Is there something you haven't done that you would like to do?
I don't think I have a wish list. What I do have is an open mind and a belief in the future.
Would you fix your tie, please?
Well, people wouldn't recognize me if my tie was fixed, but okay. Just leave it this way. All right. I don't consider myself a journalist, and nobody else would consider myself a journalist. I began to take on the life of being an interviewer, even though I have a day job of running a private equity firm. How do you define leadership? What is it that makes somebody tick? You are performing in Carousel, which is not an opera, it's a Broadway play. Why are you doing that and not opera?
I just thought, wow, it would be really exciting to do something new. I always love doing new things. It's just been an extraordinary experience. I'm the kind of person that if I were to say no for any number of reasons, I would always wonder, what if? And so rather than wondering, I typically jump in.
So opera is usually 2 or 3 nights a week, perhaps, if you're doing a show in, let's say, the Metropolitan, but you're now doing 8 shows a week.
So you touched on the actual huge difference.
Right, so you strain your voice doing 8 shows a week. Does that hurt you if you're going to go do opera later?
It wasn't that long ago, really, that people were unamplified on Broadway, and they sang, by and large, closer to the way that I do because of the drama. They absolutely put amplification into every theater now, and that makes all the difference in the world. So on the opera stage, our bodies are the amplifiers. We have to create enough sound to be heard over an orchestra, chorus, and into the back of a large hall. On Broadway, the mechanism of microphones and amplification and a really great sound designer, they do that work for us, and we can kind of not take it easy per se, but not use power.
So explain for people who may not be familiar with this. In opera, there's no amplification allowed. You can't use a microphone or anything
That's right.
like that. Why is that?
Do you know, it's the art form is old. It's been that way always. And frankly, I believe that the way we're trained enables us to be heard. And the individual quality that we have is so powerful and beautiful, actually, because we all sound quite different.
When Oscar Hammerstein and Richard Rodgers wrote the play and the music for Carousel, they knew at the time that some of the lyrics were complicated and there was a bit of spousal abuse. And you have concerns about that?
I actually think, and most of opera and most of history, really Shakespeare also looked at so many of these things. I think it's worth portraying these aspects of the human condition, of human experience, so that we can talk about it, so that we can air it. It's important to give people a platform to say, I had a bad experience. No one who should ever come to an audience and feel taken unawares, I think, and be hurt by something, but we should be affected by it.
You sing one of the highlights of the show. It's the song at the end. And what is that song that is so well known that you've sung before about, I guess, walking alone?
So You'll Never Walk Alone is one of the great iconic songs. It's a universal statement about hope and about resilience. And in this piece, it's my character Nettie sings it to Julie just as Billy has died. And it's very moving in context. And I've sung it a lot before. I sang it for the 9/11 memorial a year after 9/11 in Washington. And I've sung it all through the years. It's something that people absolutely love.
let's talk about how you became a very famous soprano, perhaps the most famous in the world. You grew up in New
You have
York.
to repeat that. I love that. I love that, David.
Well,
just keep,
it's true.
Yep, just keep saying that. Thank you.
So you grew up in upstate New York. Is that right?
I
Near
did. Rochester, New York.
Rochester.
That's right.
And your parents were music teachers.
Yes, yes.
So did they always say to you, you should grow up to be a great opera singer, or they never bothered you to?
No, they're shocked. They were absolutely shocked. They said, get a teaching degree, and you're not going to be forget about that. It's just too impossible. So you can imagine their surprise. My mother's still teaching voice. She loves it. She's very passionate about teaching, and it's step by step. It takes an incredible amount of drive, I think, and resilience again, because it's hugely competitive.
Well, when you were a little girl, you were singing in many different plays, I guess school plays and so forth.
I did musicals. I sang a lot of musicals, and never sang a musical again until now.
So when you applied to college, you wanted to go to a school that had a very good music program, and you applied to Oberlin, and you got into Oberlin. But your parents really couldn't afford for you to go
Right,
there, so
right.
you went to State University in Potsdam.
Potsdam, yes.
And it turned out that was a pretty good thing for you because they had a very good school of music. Is that right?
And a great voice teacher. So that's really one of the key components for success, is having someone who can help you develop your voice. And it's not easy. It's very individual. When you think about it, every instrument is different. It's internal, the voice, and it requires for each bone structure and each kind of physical structure a different set of rules for technique.
So when you went there, you realized you were probably better than the average person, and you began to sing a little bit professionally, but you did some jazz singing as well. You weren't
Yes.
necessarily an opera singer. Did you like jazz more than opera?
I'm still a jazz fanatic. I listen to it a lot. I've been biking on the river, and that's how I de-stress. And I listen to a lot of my favorite performers. So yeah, I still really love that. But I think classical for me, it was a better fit for my temperament. I was shy. I preferred to be in the practice room, kind of unlocking and working on the process of learning how to sing. I loved that, as opposed to being an extrovert and a performer. I had to learn that.
When did you realize that you actually were good enough to maybe be a professional singer?
I just kept going along. So it wasn't as if I made a decision. I think when I had the Fulbright scholarship, that was a big turning point for me. To be in Europe, to be steeped in a foreign language and studying, I loved that.
You begin to prepare to maybe an opera career. How did you actually break through?
You finally, somebody has to take a chance. You have to have one person, one impresario who says, I don't care what other people think, I like this soprano and I'm going to give her a break.
And your first break was in Houston. And how did that come about? Somebody called you and said somebody got sick, and can you come and perform?
Exactly. Well, I had auditioned for the program, for the studio, the Young Artist Program. A few months later, they called and said we had a cancellation.
Singing opera, you sing from the chest more and not from the throat.
So we use an optimal breath expansion, sort of an intake, and then support. Support is really a key thing. And that optimizes the amount of sound you can make without using pressure, without actually tiring yourself. So somebody can go to a sports event and shout, and they're hoarse the next day. You say, were you at a rock concert? Were you at a sports event? Where were you? Were you out dancing? You know that someone has hurt their voice. We'll sing for 3 hours, just as extreme in terms of how we're using our voice, and the next day we can do it again.
When you sing opera and you don't know the language, is that very difficult?
Well, I sing in about 9 languages, if you include Lord of the Rings, and I only speak really 3 of them. 4 if you include English. So learning everything else, whether Russian or Czech, is by rote. It's memorizing sounds. You have to sound authentic, and you also have to memorize what everyone else is saying. So it's just very time-consuming.
When you don't know the language, you memorize it by rote. Do you
Yes.
actually know what the words say, or you just
yeah.
you know what the sound is?
Yes, you have to learn it all.
Why is it you think opera has declining attendance, as does all classical music?
Well, I would have tried to explain that, but actually attendance is down at major sports arenas as well. I do think there is so much available to people for entertainment, and a lot of it is digital, and a lot of it is on television, that people by and large, I mean, I see this with young people around me, they don't want to spend the money, they don't go out. The other thing I want to say is when I moved to New York, there were only a few venues. There were theaters on Broadway, and there were a few classical music venues, a couple of dance venues. That was it. Now there's a performing arts center every other block. So I'm opening the Shed, which is opening in a year from now, which is going to be spectacular. It's extraordinary architecture, an extraordinary opportunity to create only new work. And I'm thrilled to be participating in the first piece that they're going to present.
So opera is something that you are going to continue doing. There was a story once in the New York Times that said you were going to finish your career at the Met at a certain point in 2017, but you're still doing opera, is that right?
Right. I mean, that was really unfair. That was a headline, that was trying to draw attention
So
to.
when you do today, you do opera, you're doing other types of music.
I mostly concertize, and that's what I've been doing for 15 years. I'd say I spend 80% of my time on the concert stage, which enables me to get around the world. I love creating the Renee Fleming Show, whatever it is I think the audience will enjoy the most, a mixture usually of repertoire. And I love meeting new audiences and having that one-on-one communication. I'm working on a new piece for the Met, actually, this can't be announced yet, but it's really exciting to contemplate. So I am going to go, I think, back to the Met. And but frankly, and I have another major theatrical project after the Shed. So I didn't even know that I would be doing this much theater.
So you sing the songs that won the Academy Award.
Yes, exactly. Well, Alexandre Desplat won for the music in general, but The Shape of Water, this beautiful song, it was in the credits and halfway through the film as well.
You'll never know just how much I care.
Famous sopranos are sometimes labeled as divas or prima donnas, Maria Callas being a good example of that. But you don't have that reputation. So how did you avoid that reputation?
Gosh, I just wish I could have I just wanted to nurture that a little bit so I could be the subject of dinner conversations, and I just couldn't do it. I've never been good at it.
But in other words, the ego that's involved with being a great soprano obviously gets to a lot of people.
I think it comes out of anxiety. It comes from a certain kind of a huge anxiety about performance pressure. And let's not diminish what performance pressure means. It is really challenging. And some people, if you make it to the top, even staying at the top is terribly difficult. So I have internalized the pressure that I have felt over the years. And that's not really great either, because it's not fun to feel like that. But other people externalize it, and they take it out on whoever is around them. And somehow that's how that happens. And then they go on stage and they're great.
Now, because of the pressure of being an opera singer, sometimes you need an outlet. And what did you do for an outlet?
I am a culture fanatic. I am also fascinated by, I want to learn. I'm a lifelong learner. So I'm going to museums and theater. Absolutely love theater. And I love beauty and nature, very much so. I'm enjoying nurturing young talent, and I'll hope to continue doing that in a more meaningful way in the future.
The barefoot king composing, hallelujah, hallelujah.
You're also working with NIH and Francis Collins, the head of it, to try to show that actually music can help people get healthier. Can you explain that?
So I basically met Francis Collins, who's the director of the National Institutes of Health, at a dinner party, an amazing dinner party with Justices Scalia, Ginsburg, and Kennedy, we had a sing-along.
Well, when you're doing a sing-along, isn't everybody else intimidated? You're not exactly the average sing-along person.
Well, we were kind of singing This Land Is Your Land. There were songs that everybody knew, and they loved it. I said to Francis at some point in the evening, I said, there's so much neuroscience about music. What would you think about collaborating with the Kennedy Center? And he said, Yes, let's look into that. And it's turned into this really extraordinary project. It's about drawing attention to the power of music, because the neuroscience is new. It's relatively new and becoming more widely known, but how it helps childhood in childhood development, how it helps with so many therapies for autism, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, for veterans. I gave 14 presentations in the last 6 months around the country where I sing, sharing all of the knowledge that I'm gaining in a hopefully entertaining way.
So when people come up to you, young performers, and say, I want to be a famous opera singer, what is the advice you give them?
Well, I really advise people first and foremost not to accept any limitations. Now you not only have to sing fabulously, have a super technique, and really be able to trust your voice, you have to look fabulous, look like the character you're playing, and act amazingly well. And a lot of this is developed since I started singing, and I'm sure the demands will be even more in the future.
So if I wanted to learn how to be an opera singer, it's late, I guess, in life. You have to learn early. You can't start late in life, right?
Typically not.
And today, when you go to master classes, you teach people, do you ever see anybody you think this person really is talented, or you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I absolutely, there are a lot of diamonds in the rough out there, and we also say the greatest singers in the world probably don't even know they have a voice.
Well, okay.
So David, we could work on it a little bit and see, just check out the talent.
I have, every time I have ever sung, people say, you are completely tone deaf. So I don't think I have the skill. So if you had to pay to watch opera, who would you want to pay to listen to? Who are the great opera male and female performers that you would have paid to hear?
Oh gosh, I would have loved to have heard Maria Callas because of her musicianship. I go to her records all the time. Victoria de Los Angeles, I don't think I ever heard her sing live. I'm a huge fan of her singing. Schwarzkopf, I did a master class with her, but I never heard her sing live. So there have been great we belong to a tapestry that is really historic, and I love that connection to what's come before. And I love celebrating that. And that's something we lose in our culture right now because of this connection to social media and to the here and now and the momentary. This idea that you become really wonderful at something and you learn about what people have done before you.
Yeah, tell your friends at the Met about this.
You have 2 daughters. Do they want to be singers?
They're wonderful singers. They know too much. So neither of them want to pursue singing. So the lifestyle is challenging. So I am on the road literally every 3 days. I'm on a plane.
Well, when your daughters were younger, you've written the fact that you would pack them up and take them on the road with
Yes.
you and get tutors or other than.
Yes.
Was that complicated?
Yeah, but worth it. Totally worth it. I really believe that their home was with me, that their home was with the people who love them, and that's worked out well. They've turned into fabulous young women.
So if you had the chance to sing one opera, only one more opera, for the rest of your life, what opera would you want to be in? Is there one opera?
Rosenkavalier was absolutely my favorite. The most interesting woman, the most complex, just such a three-dimensional woman, which you don't find very much. If Me Too is an issue, most of what we do in opera would not be performed because women are victimized right and left in opera because it's an historic art form. So that's why the Marschallin, who has power, even though she's complex, she is much more interesting.
You've done Broadway, done opera, classical music. Is there something you haven't done that you would like to do?
Gosh, you know what, David? It's already so much richer than I ever could have imagined. If you told me that I would be in a musical on Broadway, I would have said unlikely, unlikely. So I don't think I have a wish list. What I do have is an open mind and a belief in the future. I absolutely believe that things come to us if we work hard and we're dedicated and we love what we're doing and we're passionate.
When you're an opera singer, you can't yell at anybody or yell anything because you could ruin your voice. Do you ever worry about that, or you just don't worry about that?
I made that mistake once. One of my daughters was upstairs, and in a moment, I shouted at her, and I felt it. I went, uh-oh. I had to cancel 3 performances at the Met in a production that was built for me. So that was really unfortunate.
Right. So, like in my case, I'm not a good singer, as I mentioned. I'm completely tone deaf, but I can sing in the shower, and nobody objects. So, can an opera singer sing in the shower? That's not possible.
Oh, it's great to sing in the shower. It's a good place to warm up. You have all that moisture. In fact, you might become a better singer by singing in the
Really?
shower.
Maybe I should practice that more.
Exactly.
I'll think about that. The thing that you're most proud of having achieved in your life, other than, let's say, raising 2 very talented young women, your daughters, what would you say you've most achieved that's given you most pride? Is it coming from very modest circumstances to becoming one of the most famous people in the world, in the opera world?
Yes.
Or what would you say it is?
Well, I do share with you this extraordinary wonder at the realm of possibilities that we have as Americans, because some of my relatives were literally coal miners in Pennsylvania, and I have sat next to Prince Charles and next to the King of Sweden at dinner parties and at various performances, and I always stop and say, isn't this amazing? In literally in 2 generations that I have this ability to travel the world and experience every place I go at the most extraordinary level.
And the legacy that you would like people to think about you, let's say 20 years from now, when people look back?
I think I really expanded the possibilities for the singers who came after me by singing in multiple genres, by singing jazz, by making a rock album, now singing in music theater. When I started, people discouraged that very heavily. They said, no, you're going to ruin your legacy. You will ruin the way in which you're viewed critically. You must not step out of the box. In fact, the more specialized you are, the better. And I just thought, I'm too curious. I want to try new things. So I just ignored that advice.
When you're in opera, when you go out for a bow, it can go on for 10 minutes, 20 minutes. How long do you go out before you realize it's finally time to leave the stage?
Bowing in opera is an art form unto itself. It's another performance, and some people do it extremely well. And the audience loves it. They love it. I had to sort of I had friends who would yell at me through my whole career, stay on stage. The audience wants to show you their love, their appreciation. So it didn't come super naturally to me.
Well, thank you very much for doing this.
Thank you. It's so great to talk to you.